guys, it's Alicia again, and today I have a recipe for you that I've actually never made before. Today I'm going to attempt to make a pumpkin roll. Now, I love pumpkin rolls, but I've never actually tried to make one because they always seem like they'd be too difficult. But I hear they're actually pretty easy to make. So I'm going to attempt to do that, and I will take you along and show you whether it is a fail or a go. So if you want to see how this ends up, keep watching. Okay, the first thing you're going to want to do is turn your oven on and preheat it to 375 degrees while you're making the cake. And I should say that I got this recipe from Libby's, which is just the pumpkin puree brand. I love the recipe for their pumpkin pie. That's pretty much my go-to for pumpkin pie. So I figured, since I've never made one of these pumpkin rolls before, I would use the Libby's recipe since I know their pumpkin pie is good. So, starting out on the ingredients for the cake, you're going to need 3/4 cup flour. You're going to need a cup of granulated sugar, 3/4 cup of pumpkin puree, and this is just plain pumpkin. This doesn't have any spices or anything added to it. 3 eggs. And then for the spices, I've got them all in here. There is a 1/2 teaspoon baking powder, a 1/2 teaspoon baking soda, a 1/2 teaspoon ground cinnamon, a 1/2 teaspoon ground cloves, 1/4 teaspoon salt. And that is it for the cake. Now they have walnuts, optional if you want them, but I don't want nuts in the pumpkin roll, so I'm gonna leave that out. Okay, so moving on to the filling, what you're gonna need for that is 1 thing of cream cheese, and that's 8 ounces. And I've just got the Philadelphia here. Then you're gonna need a cup of powdered sugar, 6 tablespoons of butter, and you want this softened. Actually, you want the cream cheese softened too. So you probably want to put both of these out probably about an hour before you actually make this to make sure that they're softened, and it'll work a whole lot better when you're blending it together. And lastly, for the filling is a teaspoon of vanilla. Now, what I have here is a kitchen towel, and I've sprinkled it with a 1/4 cup of powdered sugar. And this is what we're actually going to put the pumpkin cake on top of once we get it out of the oven. So I've got that prepped and ready to go. And unfortunately, I didn't have any like plain, just white kitchen towels. The only thing I had was this fall design one, but I'm gonna use it anyway, and it should work just fine. So, the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna combine our flour, baking powder, baking soda, cinnamon, cloves, and salt in a small bowl. So I'll go ahead and do that real quick. And I'm just gonna stir this together. Next, I'm going to beat the 3 eggs and the cup of granulated sugar in my mixer. And it says to just beat until thick. Okay, and now that I've got that done, I'm going to add in my pumpkin and then mix again. Okay, I've mixed the pumpkin in, and now I'm going to add in the dry ingredients and mix one more time. That looks good. So now that we've got this all mixed together, what we want to do next is transfer it to your prepared baking pan, which I have over here. And for this baking pan, what you want to do is you want to first grease it, then line it with parchment paper, then grease and flour the top of it. And I got quite a bit of flour on here, but I figure that hopefully will keep it from sticking. So this is what I'm using. It's just a cookie sheet. Now the recipe says to use a 15 by 10 jelly roll pan, and I don't have a jelly roll pan. I'm not even sure what a jelly roll pan is, but I'm thinking this should work just fine. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this on this, and then I will show you. Okay, so this is what it looks like. I'll spread out on the baking pan. Now, the recipe says to cook for 13 to 15 minutes, but I'm gonna put it in and I'm gonna check it after probably about 10. And then we'll see where we're at. But while this is cooking, I'm gonna move on to the filling. So I will be back and show you how that comes together. Okay, so for the filling, all we're gonna do is add our cream cheese, our cup of powdered sugar, 6 tablespoons of butter, and our teaspoon of vanilla. And then we're gonna mix that up until it's smooth. And that's what that looks like when that's all done. Since I'm waiting on the cake to cook, I'm gonna go ahead and just put this in the fridge because the cake still has to cook and then it has to cool completely before we put this on it. So I'm just gonna put this away for now and I will be back when the cake is done. Okay, so I just pulled it out of the oven. It's been 13 minutes. Unfortunately, I stuck my little mitt right in it, but I think it's done. So now the directions are to loosen it and then plop it down on our prepared kitchen towel with the powdered sugar. So that's what I'm gonna do next. Okay, so I've got it loosened and I'm gonna plop it on there and hope for the best. We have a dust storm of powdered sugar. Okay. Well, let's see if that was a complete disaster or not. I'm not off to a good start here. All right, well, it came out of the pan, so that's good. Now what it says is to peel off the parchment paper. And that actually came off nice too. And then you're supposed to just roll it in the towel, starting at the narrow end here. So I'm gonna do that. Okay, now it just says to cool it on a wire rack. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna let it sit here and cool for probably 30 minutes or so. Okay, so I let this cool for about an hour. And I also took out the frosting back out of the fridge about a half hour ago so that it would be soft enough to use. So what I'm gonna do now is unroll this. Now I'm gonna take the frosting or the filling and I'm going to kind of put it down the center. And then I'm gonna just smooth it out. And I'm gonna leave about 1 inch to 2 inches on the edges. So when I re-roll this back up, it doesn't squeeze out the end. Okay. Now that I got that, I'm going to roll this back up, and I'm going to try to keep it as tight as I can. And as you can see here, I've got a little bit of cracking going, so hopefully that doesn't end like that. But so far, so good. Okay, so I've got it completely rolled now, and you want to end on the seam and let it lay like that. And that turned out pretty good as far as I'm concerned. So the instructions say to let this cool for an hour before you get into it, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and cut into it now so that you can see what it looks like. Also, if you want to sprinkle extra powdered sugar on this, you can, but I'm not going to. I think that looks fine how it is. So I'm going to go ahead and cut just the very end of this off to get the part that doesn't have the filling on it off. And you want to use a nice serrated knife. So I'm going to cut about 1 inch or so off the end just so we can get into the filling. Okay, I'm going to cut another 1 inch slice here. Yeah, no, you don't want to be cutting on the towel like I just did there. But anyway, that is what it looks like sliced. And I think it looks pretty good. And I would say that this recipe actually was pretty easy. I didn't have any major issues except for the powdered sugar explosion there. But the cake came off the pan, it rolled nicely, and I think the result on the inside is pretty. So I definitely would do this again instead of buying it. So anyway, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you on the next one. Okay, I had to come back on here after I tried some of this and just tell you that it is absolutely delicious, and it's definitely better than any store-bought one I have bought in the past. And like I said before, you are supposed to refrigerate this for at least an hour before you eat it. And I'm guessing if it's anything like cheesecake, it probably tastes even better once it's been refrigerated for a little bit. So I guess this can only get better than it already tastes. Anyway, just wanted to tell you what I thought about it.